A tiled floor can be rather hard and cold. Luckily, there's an easy way to renovate by installing hard vinyl planks on top. It will make the room look a lot more cozy. It's also a work that doesn't ask a lot of sawing, so there's not a lot of dust involved. You don't need a lot of tools either, so you can do it yourself fairly easy. In this episode, we'll show you how to renovate your floor.
First, you empty the space entirely, which is necessary if you want to install a new floor. Make sure the old floor is sufficiently flat. Over 3 meters, there should be a maximum height difference of 5 millimeters. The floor should not slope too much either. By using a long water level, you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You check the flatness and the levelness. Before you start installing the floor, let it acclimatize. Bring it into the room at least 12 hours before installing. Keep the room at room temperature as well when installing the floor. Clean the room before you can really start installing the floor. Use a vacuum cleaner to remove all small bits and dust. Measure the room to determine how to install the floor. Do you have a room with a lot of corners and edges, as in this case? Then it might be useful to draw a plan. Write down all the measurements.
Here we see a living space with a lot of corners, a kitchen, a fireplace, and a lot of supporting elements. I have to calculate the width of my first strip so I don't end up with a narrow strip at the end. I always try to end with at least half a strip. And immediately I see I will have to cut off a piece at the beginning of my first strip.
Cut some planks to size so you can immediately start installing the first row. For this floor, you can use a utility knife to cut the planks to size. Cut the plank to the right size and then break it. Cut the subfloor at the bottom of the plank again. Now you can start installing. Read the instructions again beforehand. Only when the floor has been installed correctly will you meet the warranty conditions.
The first strip is narrow, and to make sure I work in a straight line in the beginning, I lay the second strip at the same time.
The first row is too narrow to be able to put straight over the entire length. By immediately starting a second row, you are sure you are working in a straight line. Keep an 8 mm expansion joint between the wall and the new floor. By using wedge spacers, you make sure the floor will not shift. Then you can start laying the floor. We recommend using a utility knife to cut the planks to size. Cut them once or twice in the same place. Then you can break the plank. This is an easy and dust-free way to custom cut them. The floor has a click system to keep it in place. First, you place the long side in the click system. At a slight angle, place the plank in it. Then you slide the plank with the short side against the previous one. Is the seam nicely even? Then hit the seam with a rubber hammer. Make sure it is completely flush. Use your hand to feel if the seam doesn't stick out. Then you can close the long seam again. You can use an impact cube to avoid damaging the edge. Do you encounter any obstacles? Then sometimes you have to customize a part of the plank. Draw which part of the plank you need to remove. For a short piece, you may have to saw. With a simple jigsaw or a handsaw, you can make a small notch. The rest of the opening is made by using your utility knife. Then you can break out the piece. You can use pliers for small pieces.
All vinyl planks are floating, never glued, and you always put them on a subfloor. You might think I've forgotten the subfloor, but it's already attached to the bottom of the planks, which makes installing them even quicker.
The floor is only 5 mm thick, which makes it an ideal renovation floor. Because of its low thickness, you can install it in almost any room without any problems, even if you only have a limited construction height. The floor can also be used perfectly in combination with floor heating. On new screed, you have to make sure the screed does not contain any fluid anymore.
I use the remaining piece of the last strip for the beginning of the new strip. Doing so, you have less loss, but remember to keep an expansion joint of 8 mm.
Make sure this piece is at least 30 cm long. The seams between the two rows have to be at least 30 cm apart as well. Also try to mix the remaining pieces. Make sure the seams are on a different place each time to ensure the best result. Before you even know it, you'll have reached the other wall. There, you have to cut the plank to size as well. The width of the plank has to be at least 5 cm. We made our calculations in the beginning, so we come out nicely. In the width, you can also just cut the strip. You can possibly use another plank as a ruler to cut along. Use the factory edge of the plank. This side is certainly straight. To click in the last plank, first insert the long seam again into the groove of the previous row. Then make sure that the short seam fits. In order to fully click in the long seam, you cannot use a stroke block. Better use a striking bar. This will close the joint completely.
While installing, it's best to leave some packages open and close to you. Then you always have a plank within hand's reach and you can mix the different designs. It may happen, although there are a lot of different types, that you encounter the same design. So pay attention to that and never put them close together.
You have to shorten the door frame so you can slide the laminate underneath. The quickest option is to use a multi-tool. Place a leftover piece against the door frame and against the frame and saw off the excess. You can then knock the plank underneath. Use a stroke block, otherwise you will break the click system of the plank. Do you have to remove a larger part of the plank to make it fit? Then you can try to cut only. Cut both sides and break them gently. Eventually, the piece will break off on the cutting line. Put the floor around the fixed furniture in the room, as in this case around the kitchen island.
The vinyl planks in the living room are also perfectly suitable for the kitchen, as they do not contain any wood and therefore cannot swell when they come into contact with water.
If you put your kitchen on the floor, you can damage the floor over a period of time, and not only underneath the kitchen cupboards. The floor has been completely finished. First, remove the wedge spacers. Then you can install the plinths. First, you have to cut them to size. The easiest way is to use a bevel saw. Which will ensure a clean mitre in the corners. But even if you have to connect two plinths to a straight wall, it is better to place them in mitre. If they move a little, they will move one after the other. Repeatedly measure the distance on the wall itself. Meanwhile, mark which direction the mitre has to point. Here, we will be using skirting plinths. They cover the expansion joint and the old plinth as well, so we do not have to strip them. Use a polymeric adhesive to glue the plinths to the wall. This adheres easily to the wall and the MDF of the plinths. You've finished the room? Then you can start decorating it. Place felt protectors under the legs of your chairs or furniture. This way, you can be sure that your new floor doesn't get scratched.
By renovating the old floor with wood structure vinyl planks, the room is immediately a lot more cozy. You can use the same floor in the bathroom as it is perfectly suitable for all damp spaces. If you want to watch this episode again, that is possible on our website, dobbit.be. On our website, you can also subscribe to our online magazine. I'm looking forward to seeing you back for my next task. Till next time!